But the fight needs to happen for you both.
The fight,
for you both.
I've never been optimistic about this fight happening. And even when we said it was going to happen in Saudi Arabia and the deal was done, I still wasn't optimistic about it. And guess what? It never happened.
What's good, family? So mash the like button, subscribe, and lick off the bell. Wow. The last few videos I've started off with the same kind of wow, but this was the wowest of all the wows. And you know what? Before I say anything, let's actually read out what my man Tyson Scary had to say. So Gary Neville says to him, obviously they spend about the whole clip here, or the whole interview is about 5 minutes long, or the part I saw anyway, it's 5 minutes long. Obviously Gary Neville, most of it is tickling Fury's ass and whatnot. And at the end, the last 30 seconds, he must have got a nudge, or someone must have come in his ear and said, listen Gary, you need to stick it on him, because you've just been licking his ass off for the last 5 minutes. So at least pull your finger out for the last 30 seconds. 2-2s. At the last 30 seconds, Gary Neville goes, but come on Tyson Scary. This fight does need to happen, don't it? At which point, Tyson Scary responds, I've never been optimistic. He goes, yeah, the fight does need to happen, but I've never been optimistic about the fight happening. Even when it was all signed and the deal was done, I still wasn't optimistic about it. And guess what? It didn't happen. Do you man get what I'm trying to... Did you actually hear what he said? Oh yeah, even when the fight was signed, I still wasn't optimistic about it happening, and guess what? It didn't happen. Even when... He's making out like it was AJ or some other event. The way he's putting it across here to the public is almost as if, you know what guys, I knew something you didn't. I knew it weren't going to happen. See, I told you. And guess what? It didn't happen. It was you. It was you. It was you playing them funny games. When you had a Wilder contract. An alleged judge court thing that no one's seen no papers to, but either way, whatever way you want to look at it, it was all Team Fury. It's a fact. It's documented. And he's sitting there saying, oh, you know what? The thing is, I was never optimistic about the fight. Even when it was all signed, and even when I jumped on Instagram and ranted and raved about the fight being signed, I still wasn't optimistic. And guess what? It didn't happen. And guess what, Garrett? You know what? It's just as well the interview finished. Because they best hope, because from what I'm hearing, AJ sat down with Gary Neville, yeah, and it was about a 40-minute interview. Gary Neville best hope for his sake that was the end of the interview. Because if he let that slide, yeah, in fact, scrap it. Gary Neville is going to get it either way, because why did they end it there? How did no one jump in and say, wait there a minute, Tyson, what do you mean, guess what? What do you mean, guess what, it didn't happen? What do you mean you wasn't optimistic and, oh, guess what, I knew something you guys didn't, and guess what, it didn't happen, see, I told you. What's going on here? But you know what, I started out in this video by saying that I can't even really blame Tyson Scary for acting like this and for trying to flip the narrative. Why can't we blame Tyson Scary, really? Because guess what? AJ, in fact, in this actual interview, AJ, in his interview with Gary Neville set him up perfectly a few times. AJ, what do you think about Fury's Wilder situation? AJ was, oh yeah, no. AJ was like, oh yeah, well no, the thing is, yeah, you can't blame Fury. Fury's a true fighting man, and yeah, well, you can't blame Fury. Fury had a contract negotiation. Fury was locked in with the Deontay Wilder thing, so you know, it's not really his fault. Every opportunity, AJ either sat on the fence or blew Fury off. Never once did AJ say, you know what, I never saw no court documents. So it's, in my opinion, it says he didn't have no, you know what I'm saying? I didn't see nothing. All we know is he didn't turn up to the fight. That's a fact. Never once did AJ say it clean like that. Even when Gary Neville said to him, AJ, do you think Tyson Fury is scared? Oh, no, he's a fighting man. He'll fight anyone. He don't care about getting hit. Every single time, on every single point, AJ was there, sitting on the fence, I mean, even at the start of this little clip, the 5-minute interview that Gary Neville had with Tyson Fury, when Gary Neville says to AJ, I forgot what the question was, something about, oh, do you think Fury's a true fighting man or something like that? AJ was like, oh, you know, I don't really know. He was just sitting on the fence. Shocking. Of all the people, yeah, I wouldn't mind. There's some people, if AJ was to talk about Dillian White or Andy Ruiz, if he wants to sit on the fence and bounce around the place, so be it. But with this individual, with the games that he's played, there's no room for fence sitting. I'm sick of it. And I have to admit, people have said for years, oh, AJ's media trained. Well, I don't think it's media training as such. Whatever it is, it's just frustrating now. I'm done with it. I really am. Done with a lot of it. I'm done with being the only... Why are we the only ones that feel deeply about it? Because in my mind, it's just straight. There should be... AJ over the last 3 months, yeah, none of us should be confused about the situation from AJ's point of view. For example, when you man watch my videos, yeah, guess what? Not one of you man can be confused. Not one of you man can say, oh, you know what, I'm not sure about AJ's opinion. Or better yet, YB's opinion. Or I'm not sure where YB's going, you know what I'm saying? With regards to Tyson Scary. From AJ's point of view, I couldn't tell you what he thinks. And it's really quite weird, if I'm honest with you, because back in May, AJ put them tweets out when he was going off. He put a tweet out about, yeah, Fury's fake charity. He put a tweet out about Tyson Fury bottling it when Billy Joe Saunders' dad was getting moshed. He aired, at the time when the fight fell through, within the first few days, AJ was on it. Although it was on Twitter, I've got to say that. I don't believe when it came to the interviews, immediately after, Fury pulled out. After the alleged judge decision, allegedly the judge ruled that he got to fight Wilder. In them few days, AJ was active on Twitter, but we haven't actually seen him air anything out, which is completely different, to be honest. It's easy to say things on Twitter. To come on an interview, that's when it would have mattered, and that's why I was frustrated. Because guess what? Of all I think probably had 2 or 3 interviews. In the 2 or 3 interviews we've heard from AJ, he ain't said nothing. Nothing decisive anyway. If anything, he's been chilling for Fury. As I've just explained, sitting there talking about, oh, well, you know, it's not his fault, and oh, he had the Wilder thing, and oh no, he's a fighting man, he's not scared to get hit. All this kind of stuff. And now you got Fury sitting there acting like, yeah, well, you know, even when the fight was signed, I was never optimistic, I knew it weren't going to happen, and guess what? It didn't happen. And your man's Gary Neville just sat there and giggling and laughing along like it's, oh yeah, mate, yeah. Good call that was, Fury. Wow, yeah, you're really... What's your name? Nostradamus? Nostra Fury? Damn, Tyson, how did you... Fair play to you, lad. You must be super smart, super high IQ for you to be able to work out that the fight wasn't going to happen. It's madness. It's like he wasn't part of the fight. And the thing is as well, yeah, what we know for a fact is, in boxing today, the boxers rule the fight. Or the boxers are the ones who make sure a fight happen. It's not 1980s where Don King and promoters and Bob Arum had a say. In 2021, if a fight doesn't happen, it's because of one of 2 people, or 2 of 2 people. Yeah, 1 of 2 or 2 of 2 people. Either one fighter doesn't want it, or both don't want it. So wait there a minute, so let's focus here. It's either AJ don't want it, or Fury don't want it. And you've got one of the individuals in the interview admitting he wasn't sure the fight was going to happen. Yeah, you know, I knew it weren't never going to happen. I've never heard AJ ever say that. But these guys, Gary Neville, is sitting there stroking Fury. Oh, yeah, mate, tickling him off. How can... Explain that to me, please. Explain how that's allowed to be let off the hook. What do you mean you weren't never optimistic, even when the fight was signed? Well, the fight was signed. What's there not to be optimistic about? I'll tell you what there was to be pessimistic about. The reason Tyson Fury was pessimistic, even when the fight was signed, was because he knew that fake court case, that fake judge, we're going to come and bail him out. That's why. Oh, how did Gary Neville not bring that up? Well, Tyson, you've just said that even when... Because for me, when a fight's signed, it's done. You got, at that point, yeah, when a fight's been signed, you can't blame the other person. So when Tyson Fury sits there and says, oh, well, you know, the reason I wasn't optimistic about the fight... Oh, sorry. When he sits there and says, I wasn't optimistic about the fight happening even when it was signed, you can't say, well, it was... That statement in itself removes Anthony Joshua from the whole half of it, because the fight's done, he's locked in. It wasn't AJ who pulled out, was it? So you can remove him. We haven't heard of no narrative that the fight fell through because of AJ. It fell through because of Tyson Scary. So how did Gary Neville not pull him on that? Well, Fury, you've just admitted you never thought the fight was going to happen. Can you explain why you... Let's not make out this is some big, oh, well, you know, there's 50 different cogs going on. There's a whole load of spinning plates. No. AJ was locked in. So what happened with you? Oh, well, you know... But he didn't even question him. Obviously, we know what the answer's going to be. Oh, well, the judge came through. So why... And the thing I don't get, why weren't you saying that? Why did you sign it for, then? Why did you sign it if you knew that a judge was going to come through and change it? About... Oh, I was always pessimistic. I never thought it was going to happen even when it was signed. I bet you didn't. But it's, for me, it's just the way the whole media just sits there laughing and giggling. It's mad, don't you think? Going along with it like it makes sense. Genuinely, yeah. Seldomly am I shocked. This was shocking for me. This was genuinely shocking to sit there and hear a man describe his own actions in that way, completely reversed. Oh, yeah. It was the way he tried to act like a smart ass. He tried to act like he's really deep and really smart. Yeah, you know what, guys? Yeah, I'll tell you something. I knew something you guys didn't. I'm super duper smart. Even when this fight was signed, I knew it weren't going to happen. And look, guess what? It didn't happen. It didn't happen because of you. And it's one thing, yeah, for someone to play the kind of games Tyson Fury plays, and for him to lay low. Like Billy Ho Saunders, he stays laying low for the main. For the main part, Billy Ho Saunders missing. Fair enough to him. He laying low on purpose. But you got Tyson Scary pulling these kind of games, and then he's describing the games in a way that makes himself look good. Makes himself look smart. See, I told you guys it wouldn't happen, didn't I? I told you I was optimistic even when it was signed. And guess what? It didn't happen. See, I've never seen it happen ever before. Normally, when someone done something so blatant, as not so blatant to stop something happening, as Tyson Fury did, they're just lucky, you know what, let's just keep our head down. But to spin it in that way, and for these goofy media dudes to sit there and just circle jerk with him, I've never seen anything like it. And it just shows you how everyone's paid off. I think Eddie Hearn, well, we know Eddie Hearn's affiliated with MTK. I think they're all just paid off, to be fair. That's the only conclusion. I think AJ's probably getting MTK money as well in his pocket. So he's sitting there, you know, I'm just going to go along to get along. I think everyone's just MTK'd up, truth be known. That's the only thing that makes sense now. So I don't get it myself. Because from where we're sitting, yeah, the only people who are frustrated here are the fans. And we're the only ones who we know for a fact ain't getting paid. Oops. Isn't it? The only people here who are frustrated are the fans. And we're the only ones who there ain't no paper trail going back to MTK. Everyone else, Tyrone Booth, yeah? See what I mean? Even them ones. Even the other dudes like that. Tyrone Booth, he don't mind. He's shilling for it. Every single person who's got a link is super duper happy or super duper on the fence, not really bothered. Either way. Us lot have to sit there and watch these kind of things go down, and everyone's laughing and giggling. It's madness.